Your old or broken phone can let you down when you need it most.
Perfect.
But at Verizon, trade in any old phone from our top brands and get the most for it, up to $2,000 in value, for an amazing new iPhone 16 Pro with Apple Intelligence and a new line on My Plan, and iPad and Apple Watch Series 10. That's like a 3-for-1. And you can get it on any plan. At Verizon, trade in your old phone for a brand new iPhone 16 Pro, iPad, and Apple Watch. The other guys won't give you that. Visit Verizon.com today. Additional terms apply. Service plan required for Apple Watch and iPad. Up to $2,000 value based on iPhone, iPad, and Apple Watch.
You got problems that you ought to be concerned with. Moolah. You don't know how you're supposed to earn it, or what to do with it, or how to keep it. You're a freak with a dark, shameful secret. But you're not the only one. Get your hidden financial fears with a blast of sun. Now your healing has begun. It's Bad with Money with
Gabe S.
Done.
Hello and welcome to Bad with Money, a show about finances and feelings where we don't talk down to you. I'm your host, Gabe S. Dunn, and with me today is Tiffany Irving. Do you want to tell my audience who you are and what you do?
Hi, yeah. Thank you for having me, Gabe. I'm excited to be here with you today. I'm a senior wealth advisor with Mesero Wealth Management based out of Chicago. I work with individuals and families to help them create customized wealth planning and investment strategies, and I've been doing it for about 25 years. So just providing ongoing financial advice and investment management for our clients throughout their various life changes. And my passion is just educating and empowering people around their finances.
Yeah, so when you wrote in, it's interesting. One of the topics that you talk about a lot, it seems, or that is interesting to you, is the rise of the female breadwinner. So yeah, I really wanted to talk about, well, not only why that's happening or what's happening there, but also, you know, part of the topic is embracing it and allowing it to happen. So can you talk a bit about what you'd noticed or what it's looking like now in terms of because I grew up, my mom was always the breadwinner. So I'm just curious what's going on now.
Love that. Love that. I think it's a passion of mine just because personally in our relationship, I've been the female breadwinner for a while. So I think it comes from that. We talk a lot about people's money mindsets and their history with money management and wealth. And so as you said, with your mom being the breadwinner, you had that background and history. I'm sure you know when you read a lot about the traditional, right, gender roles in a relationship and what that should look like. And so it's just interesting how I think we've progressed over time. We still have a long way to go there. But, you know, we talk about how that number has just been growing. I think it's somewhere near 40% now where you have a woman who is the sole or primary breadwinner in relationships especially where families have children.
This is in heterosexual relationships?
That's in heterosexual relationships. I think it's interesting too, though, working with a lot of LGBTQ plus families, it's not even necessarily those gender-specific roles. I think there's just a lot of stress, regardless of who the breadwinner is in a relationship and for your partners or spouses. A lot of times that fluctuates even throughout the history of your relationship. So it may be one at one point in time and someone at another. But I think it's important to understand what those stressors put on families in general, the two of you as a couple, and then how society kind of views you in those roles.
It was interesting. I was just listening to the If Books Could Kill episode of Boys and Men. One of the things that they were talking about is the pay gap. And they were talking about how there was a study, I think in Norway, where it was lesbian couples. And they studied because it was two women, who actually was like suffering at work in terms of salary at different times. What they found was, and you know, I don't know about the methodologies, but what they found was that it was always the person who took time off to care for the children, regardless of gender. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that speaks to what you've seen.
No, I absolutely. I think whenever there is a gap in your career, it tends to always, unfortunately, hurt you from a salary perspective. And historically, that's been for the women who've taken gaps in their careers. But I think that the same is true for men. You know, it sets you back, well, twofold for women, right? We're typically already earning less than our counterparts before we take those gap years. And then we take time off, whether it's for an illness or to raise children. And then when you come back, you know, instead of, you know, viewing that, right, from an employer standpoint, they take those gap years and they either start you where you were or even set you back a little further. So historically speaking, I think that's hurt hurt people, especially women, when they're trying to come back into the workforce, which makes it difficult from a financial planning perspective, for sure, because we tend to live longer than our male counterparts. So we're trying to make up for that gap in our career, in our compensation and our retirement planning, set additional dollars aside. So does that push off how long we need to work, and making sure we have enough retirement assets if we outlive our partners?
I think part of it too is, even if, let's say, the male partner in the relationship takes time off and is the one to care for the kid, the bosses will still view the new mother as someone who's maybe not available for overtime or weekends, unreliable. So that was an interesting perspective to look at too, that even if she stays working and he's the one who takes time off to care for the kid, she is still viewed as the primary caregiver.
I just, speaking from personal experience, I guess on that point, for our kids when they were growing up in the schools, I've always been the one working, and my husband has been a stay-at-home dad since our first daughter was born. And I can tell you, to this day, we're on our third kid going through the elementary school. The other two are in college. But if there is an issue at school or someone is sick, no matter how many times I put his phone number first, they call me at work, even though they know that he's at home. The school knows us very well. So I think that's really an astute point you make.
Yeah, I mean, and in 2025, like, not to say things are great now, gender-wise, but it is interesting. There was like a Reddit post that I was looking at where this father wanted a full custody of their child in a divorce, and the attorney was asking him, what is their doctor's name? What is their best friend's name? What time do they go to like school to get dropped off? And he had no idea. And so it's hard when you're the female breadwinner and expected to be the all-knowing person who remembers the bake sale, remembers that it's Spirit Week.
Absolutely. And I think, to your point, I think we've come a long way, and some of those societal norms are shifting, but we're certainly not there yet. Plenty of men in our lives and friends we know where the dads are just as active as the moms. So it's unfortunate that we've kind of got that traditional role model, I think 1950s viewpoint still going on today. And again, a lot of times, right, money is the key driver here for a lot of the families making the decisions about who's working, who's staying home, if that's your scenario, or maybe you're both working, but one is out earning the other right now. So splitting up kind of to your point, the domestic duties around the house and who's driving the kids here and there, all of those things. Those are conversations that you have to have within your relationship. But I can tell you, at least especially from personal experience, how kind of the community and society views that or judges things, which they shouldn't be judging.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that on an interpersonal level or within relationships, men and women are having these conversations, and it is between the couple changing or progressive, and then within the larger society of school or sports or even, down to the coffee shop or whatever, it's not reflecting what the couples are speaking about, privately in their homes, which is interesting.
Exactly. I think there's obviously the economic impact for couples in that. And then there's the emotional impact of what may be working for the two of them, having conversations around. I know, at least specifically for us, early on, we'd have black tie gala events, and other people in the financial industry would ask my husband what he does and then walk away. Because they don't know how to talk to him as a stay-at-home parent. They know their world.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it was very, very interesting. So whatever role you're taking, I guess, in that regard in a relationship, you have to be very comfortable in who you are and what you do. And I tie it all back to, those are the conversations we're having with the families we work with around their financial planning and how to prepare for that going forward. Is one income enough to not only, sustain you now, but into the future? What does that retirement plan look like? How do you set aside dollars? So we come at it, from the financial side of things. But it's really a very interesting, and it probably matters geographically where you live, the communities you live in, all of those things come into play.
Yeah, even not with stay-at-home parents, but even when both parents work, but one parent has a lower salary or a lower income coming in. I was looking for a day job. As you guys know from listening to this show, making money consistently is really important, and it's really scary when it's not happening. And so I was looking for a job, and I was looking all over. I was going to places. I was trying to do that old school thing of maybe you just leave a resume at the smoothie shop. I don't know. But I found my job so easily using Indeed. And I actually recommended Indeed to other people to use when they come in and they say, oh, how can I work here? I say, I actually found the job on Indeed. So go look at Indeed, because that is literally how I found my job and applied and got hired. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach people you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. One of the things I love about Indeed is that it matched me to the right job. It showed me exactly the types of jobs I was looking for. I was able to parse through. I was able to see the locations. I was able to see the requirements. I was able to apply. I don't know how I would have done it without Indeed, truly. And it obviously allowed this business to find the right people, aka me. With Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? In the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There is no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/badwithmoney. Just go to Indeed.com/badwithmoney right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/badwithmoney. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. You guys know that I take testosterone and that causes your hair to thin, and my hair is thinning. And I want it to thin to a certain degree, but I don't need it to thin as much as it may end up thinning. So what can I do about that? And as you guys know, I have known about Nutrafol for a while, and I have been taking it. They were kind enough to send me some samples like a few weeks ago, and I have seen decreased shedding. Like, my hair sheds so much in the shower, and that always freaked me out, made me feel really self-conscious, like just would always think, is this too much hair? And after taking Nutrafol, I have noticed decreased shedding. This year, there is nothing holding you back from loving your hair again. Hair is so much more than what you see on the surface. It's a reflection of what's happening inside, such as my testosterone. Let Nutrafol target the key root causes of your thinning hair and help you grow stronger, healthier strands from within. Hair thinning is very common, okay? And it's very frustrating that it's kind of a new thing that's going on for me as I transition. And I need all the help I can get, especially because the shedding is so freaky. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. See thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. I cannot wait to get to the 3-month mark if it's already helping now. Physician formulated with 100% drug-free ingredients, Nutrafol supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting key root causes of thinning, okay? So they are stress, hormones, aging, nutrition, lifestyle, metabolism, through whole body health. Building a hair growth routine is simple. Purchase online, no prescription required. Automated deliveries and free shipping keep you on track. Plus, with the Nutrafol subscription, you can save up to 20%. You'll have access to free naturopathic doctor consults, and a Headspace meditation membership is included. While many supplements rely solely on ingredient studies, Nutrafol clinically tests final formulations to ensure their efficacy. In a clinical study, 72% of men saw more scalp coverage after taking Nutrafol Men Hair Growth Supplement for 6 months, and 86% of women saw improved hair growth after taking Nutrafol Women Hair Growth Supplements for 6 months. Start your hair growth journey with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month's subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code BWM. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code BWM. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code BWM.
Your old or broken phone can let you down when you need it most.
Perfect.
But at Verizon, trade in any old phone from our top brands and get the most for it, up to $2,000 in value, for an amazing new iPhone 16 Pro with Apple Intelligence and a new line on my plan, and iPad and Apple Watch Series 10. That's like a 3-for-1. And you can get it on any plan. At Verizon, trade in your old phone for a brand new iPhone 16 Pro, iPad, and Apple Watch. The other guys won't give you that. Visit Verizon.com today. Additional terms apply. Service plan required for Apple Watch and iPad. Up to $2,000 value based on iPhone, iPad, and Apple Watch.
So you've been in this for 25 years. I feel like every few years there's a moral panic over women earning more, or the rise of the female breadwinner comes up. There'll be some Time magazine article and everyone panics. What do you think that panic is about?
It's interesting. The panic is about, looking at those traditional norms, right? How does it affect family dynamics? How does it affect, the children you're raising or the people around you? Again, it's evolving over time. Those traditional power structures and relationships are shifting and changing over time. It's leading to more, I think, balanced decision-making and mutual respect among partners. But for some reason, a lot of things, I would say, not just the female breadwinner, it sometimes scares people. It's different. You and I both grew up with women who are primary caregivers, but a lot of people did not, right? They grew up where maybe their moms were at home and their dads were working. So,
primary breadwinners, you mean?
Yes. So I think that's kind of part of it. I don't know. I can't dive into why that maybe scares people, but I think the fact that we're at like 40% now, that's a really big number. We're over 50% of the population, or we have more confidence and self-esteem than ever, right? We're out in the workforce. We're able to manage our own careers. We want financial independence. I think financial freedom is a huge impact in all of our lives. So the fact that, you can be financially independent and empower yourself to make decisions for your personal and professional life is critically important. But you have to have both partners really aligned in what that looks like for both of you going forward.
Yeah, I'm 36, and I remember, I don't know if you ever watched Rugrats growing up, but I remember the depiction of Angelica's mom as always working, yelling on the phone, doing business. I think it was played for laughs a bit, but it was also, I think they did handle it kind of well, but that was my introduction or look besides my mom. And it's played as the woman is so domineering and the man is so meek. And, the man is sort of scrambling to help her while she's wearing a suit on the treadmill. It's this idea of emasculation, or that the woman making more money means she has more power in the relationship, which is so funny because then if you flip that and say, oh, well, with the man was making more money, he had more power in the relationship, I feel like certain people would say, oh, that's not true. That's not true. She takes care of everything. And it's like, well, you can't have it both ways.
Can't have it both ways. Exactly. I just think there's a lot of challenges there. And it's workplace discrimination, it's societal pressure, it's domestic responsibilities. I think there's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of stress with either gender, quite frankly. Whoever is the breadwinner in a relationship, money is stressful for everyone. And I think it doesn't necessarily matter who that is in the relationship, but it's having the conversations and the communication around what works for you and trying to block out kind of the noise that's surrounding us outside of that, I think is, and it can sometimes be, to your point, it's very challenging. And if your partner is somehow feeling less than or emasculated in any way, how do you fix that? And, maybe it's not necessarily around the money, but maybe it's the roles that they're taking or, something, there's more there to dig into, I think.
Yeah, this is where straight people could learn from queer and cis people, probably, to have more of a community mindset, to have more options or availability, to think about the way you want your partnership or your life to look. That's been something that's been really lovely, but it also is funny to watch us fall into these same roles sometimes, just because it's so overwhelmingly what we see. And even when you go to seek financial planning, I wrote an article for Autostraddle about trans financial advisors and sort of the rise of that I've seen. And it's been interesting where they've seen how other people go into financial planning offices or wealth planning offices and immediately are spoken to as if the husband is the one who makes the money, as if, we'll put his name on the account. So they're working behind the scenes in let's say your position, and they are sort of pushing back to the clientele like, well, let's discuss this, or, we can put both your names or things like that, where the industry sort of, I think it's changing a lot, but the industry itself would reinforce these roles too, even when you go in to try to financially plan.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely a patriarchal structure, if I'm saying that word correctly here, just based on, and especially when I started, I'm going to age I'm a little older than you. I started in the late 90s in the industry, and it was very much the meetings were with husbands, the wives weren't showing up, or they would come, but they weren't being talked to, or people were just making assumptions that they weren't decision makers. And I can tell you that's the absolute wrong way to go. And any relationship, right? It's a partnership regardless. And so my salary or income is no different than my partner, my spouse, who's at home doing things, by the way, that I never wanted to do, right? We had those conversations. So I don't think you can put a dollar amount on that even. So I think that's part of it. It's both people in a partnership are decision makers. It doesn't matter where the income is generated from. So I think that's critically important because they've agreed to take care of each other. And even in single mom situations, that's a big part of the rising female breadwinner. You've got a lot of single moms out there. And I think that's really a big deal. I mean, that's where the situation my mom was in when I was young. So that's what I saw growing up is, working 2 to 3 jobs, making sure food was on the table, making sure the rent was getting paid. And so that's part of my money mindset comes from the history I had around that as well. And so I say, right, kudos to all those single moms out there who are running in circles, making it happen. But that's a portion of that growing number as well.
That's very interesting. Why do you think that that's been growing?
More people maybe are choosing not necessarily to get married. I think that's part of it. I think women have become more empowered to realize that you can stay in a partnership and not get married, or you can do it on your own. I've known a number of friends who over the years who never found their person but wanted to become a mom someday and went about doing that on their own, and which you can absolutely do. So, right, it's a different story for everyone. That's the important part, I think, of what I do as an advisor is sit down and listen to people's stories, listen to their backgrounds, meet them where they are, and try to help them grow to where they want to be in an impactful way on the financial side. So I think that's part of it. We're becoming more empowered with our own personal wealth and finances, which is really critically important.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I was thinking that you can raise a child without a partner, or you can say, I want kids, but I don't necessarily need to marry the first guy that asks.
Right, exactly.
How it used to be.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not only do I have friends who have been the victims of identity theft, including someone you know very well, my co-host on my other show, Allison Raskin, but I have also been doxxed. I've been harassed. I remember when I was working at BuzzFeed, I had right-wingers trying to figure out where I lived, posting everything about me. Privacy really matters. And it not just matters to me as a public figure, but it should matter to you as a listener, especially because I've had people in my personal life harass me too. Exes, things like that, estranged family members. Do you ever wonder how much of your personal data is out there on the internet for anyone to see? It's more than you think. Your name, your contact info, your social security number, home address, even information about your family members, all being compiled by data brokers and sold online. Yes, they can find out your address very easily, even old addresses where other family members might still live. Data brokers make a profit off your data. Your data is a commodity. Anyone on the web can buy your private details. This can lead to identity theft, phishing attempts, harassment, and unwanted spam calls. But now you can protect your privacy with Delete Me. As a person who exists publicly, especially as someone who shares my opinions online, I am hyper aware of safety and security, and it's easier than ever to find personal information about people online. All of this data is just hanging out on the internet, and it can have actual consequences in the real world. That's why I personally use Delete Me. Delete Me is a subscription service that removes your personal info from hundreds of data brokers. I literally do use Delete Me. Myself, certain friends of mine, we all use Delete Me. I had it recommended to me by a friend of mine who's a sex worker, and she uses it to keep herself safe. I used it to get a bunch of stuff scrubbed off the internet. I promise you it works. It was great. They gave me these personalized updates, like when I signed up, right, I gave Delete Me the exact information I wanted deleted, and their experts took it from there. Then they sent me these personalized privacy reports showing what info they had found, where they found it, and what they removed, which I loved reading because I was shocked at what they had found. So Delete Me isn't just a one-time service. It's always working for you, constantly monitoring, removing personal information you don't want on the internet. Put simply, it does all the hard work of wiping you and your family's personal information from data broker websites. I promise you, I use it. Myself and a bunch of sex worker friends, we all use it. They recommended it to me, and that's how you know it works. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me, now at a special discount for our listeners. Today, get 20% off your Delete Me plan by texting BAD MONEY to 64000. Text BAD MONEY to 64000. That's BAD MONEY, all one word, to 64000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ13 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
You know, it's interesting, as I'm a millennial squarely, and I've been thinking a lot about there's this pushback that I think, movements go in waves. But so there's this idea where I grew up and it was very girl power, female empowerment, get a job. I used to be a woman, spoiler alert, get a job, do these things that will make sure that you are moving up the corporate ladder or that you're building a career, put your nose down to the grindstone and do that, move to a big city, whatever it is. And then I'll say for lower middle class, upper class millennials, as a woman, then you do all of that. Then you kind of come out on the other side with your career and you're like, oh, fuck, I got to get married and have kids. So then you go to try to do that and you're exhausted. And then there's kind of been now, I think, as a reaction, the sort of tradwife situation where all of a sudden, I think a lot of women, zillennials, are like, oh, why did I even try to do this? Why was I wearing my sneakers on the subway to put my heels on at work to go and climb this ladder and make this money when it just created like misery and individualism? And what I should have done is married a guy and moved to a farm and been a stay-at-home wife, because there used to be this idea of the gold digger, which was a negative. And now I feel like I'm like every day at my job, I'm like, when will a rich man marry me?
I love that for you, Gabe. I love that.
Thank you so much. I was like, these guys come in, older guys come in, and I'm always like, oh, maybe, because, it's a kind of a rich area that I work in. And then they'll, give us their customer profile and they always share it with a woman. So they always have a wife. And I was saying to my coworker, like, my kingdom for one of these effeminate zaddies to come in and not be married to a woman.
Yeah, I think that's interesting that you brought up. I've been reading a lot about that too, and seeing a lot of that on social media around the trad wives. And, it goes back to the age old, we're such a world of judgment, but working moms, not working moms, right? Back and forth. Do you give up your career and raise your kids for a little while and then get back into the workforce? And what does that look like? Again, these are all societal driven judgments, or, maybe it's based on your religious beliefs or how you were raised. All of those things really play into that, I think, for a lot of people. But to your point, sometimes you get into the workforce and that's not your thing, and that's okay. If you want to go live on a farm and do the mom thing and have chickens and that's your thing, go for it, do it. On the other side of that spectrum are, I'm going to describe myself here, right? No judgment to myself, but type A, I've always wanted to work, love my career, love financial services, love educating and empowering other people to find their money mindsets and plan for their futures. It's so much fun. I kind of geek out on the numbers, but that's really what I enjoy doing. And, whether that's Wall Street or a doctor or a lawyer or whatever you choose to do, journalism, all the things that are out there, I think, we just have so many choices that we should be able to make without the judgment of those around us. It's hard to do.
Yeah. I think it is interesting. Maybe as we enter an economic depression, there is more of a, the idea of, you have to have self-respect by being such a corporate woman CEO is becoming sort of tiresome. People are just really tired.
They are tired. And yes. And so that's it. My two older kids are in college now, and my oldest daughter's my musical theater major. Love it. She's so creative and artsy and can sing and all the things I never knew how to do.
Wow, cool.
But I'm a financial advisor, so I'm paranoid of how is she gonna eat? I don't know. We'll figure that out.
I went to an art school. I didn't study arts. I studied journalism, although maybe it is an art, but it was mostly an art school. And it was interesting my final years. So this would have been post-recession, 08, 09, 2010. They started requiring musical theater majors to have an entrepreneurship minor because they realized you're going to need some business sense. And I did a lot of stuff. I've had many jobs, but working in Hollywood, one of the most discouraging things was realizing how much of it was business.
Yes, that's a big
And
aspect.
I was like, this sucks.
I begged her. She's in a personal financial planning class right now, which she hates. She's not taking any business. It's just not her thing. And that's okay. But I think what I want to educate people on is there's just a knowledge base that you need to have. So you can do your basic budgeting. So you're saving emergency funds. So you're not finding yourself where you're in a debt situation that is really, really difficult or takes years to get out of. So all of those things I think are really, really critical and important. I wish they started teaching it in high schools. Just some basic skill sets. So people are kind of learning on the fly or reactive to what's going on in their personal lives. And it can often take years to get out of those tough situations. So I always talk about the wealth that you have and the financial acumen that you have brings with it some level of freedom. I don't want to say, with wealth, you're happier or you don't have stress or you don't have problems. We have a lot of wealthy clients and none of that is true. But on the flip side, what it does bring you is that freedom to, if it's a whether you're a woman or not, a tough relationship to get out of, if you need to leave in any situation. I sit on the board for a domestic abuse shelter, right? So that's critically important. There is a lot of financial abuse that happens out there in relationships. So I think those are the conversations that we need to be having with the next generation, with the kids that are coming out of schools, just so that they have autonomy and confidence in their finances.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that you do the tradwife track and you're a little bit trapped. And you don't have access to, the ability. That's really what it is. I do think money can make you happy, for sure. I don't buy the money doesn't buy happiness, although I do understand that there are things that you can't buy your way out of, health stuff in some capacity, things like that.
It's definitely less stressful.
Yeah. And I was thinking a lot about the conversation around Nepo babies. And not only is that, the thing that I think about is if you had unlimited resources, you would be an artist, because that's why so many of them, I think it's parental, but also imagine having everything at your fingertips and having the ability to lay around and think. You would choose to be a singer-songwriter. You would choose to be an actor, because if given the freedom, you would choose art, I think, for a lot of people. that's what's sad about the monetary situation in my eyes sometimes is there are so many wonderful artists or people who would want to do other jobs, teach or contribute to society in certain ways that would be really beautiful and beneficial to the community. But instead they have to work. They have to work these other jobs.
Right.
Yeah. And so part of it is that it is the ability to have choices, which is maybe the most important thing in life. I mean, I don't know. I'm older now. I mean, I'm sort of thinking that now, that the ability to have choices is huge because that allows you to even, I see trans people talking about wanting to leave the country. And a lot of the conversation is with what money?
Right. You feel stuck, right?
Yeah.
Or do you, yeah.
And then, it's a lot of people that say, oh, my grandparents were married for 50 years. And I'm like, yeah, she couldn't divorce him. she didn't have a bank account.
Didn't have a bank account. Right. Maybe. I think that's important. I think I would argue even if you're moving into or interested in that trad wife role, I would say it's important to still have, what does that mean? How far does it go from a financial perspective? But if you're in a partnership, regardless of who's doing which roles, I think it's important to have money conversations. If I am not the one bringing in the income, though, are we still opening retirement accounts in my name? Do I have my own Roth IRA? To your point, do I have my own bank accounts? Are those joint? I mean, those are all critically important conversations, but everyone should have access to their own finances. I think that's critically important.
Yeah, even if you're like, well, I got married to this guy, so I don't have to think about it. I mean, look at the current, I don't know if you watch White Lotus, the current season of White Lotus, not to spoil, but there's a whole storyline where it's a very, very wealthy family and the mom knows nothing about the finances and the dad does all this stuff and it's slowly becoming apparent that he has done crimes.
Oh.
And that everything's about to fall apart. And I think that the idea for the female partner to say, I don't like that paperwork. I don't want to know. I don't want to look at it. You're putting yourself in this very precarious position.
For sure. And what happens in a lot of cases, right, where you get a incapacity or a death situation, and then suddenly you have to step up and take on that role. So it's really important to understand where your assets are, how they're titled, how do you access them? Do you have the passwords? All of these things we talk about with our clients. What do your estate plan documents say? Are you the successor trustee or is it somebody else named? And I think that's all critically important. Even if you're not really interested, I'm going to air quotes, interested in finances, there's some basics that I think it's important for everyone to know.
Yeah, my aunt, lovely, very smart, very wonderful woman, wonderful partnership with her husband. And he passed away somewhat unexpectedly. And she didn't know the passwords to anything. She didn't know who did what. She had no idea. It's taken her like a year to figure it out.
Yes. And we see that a lot. Sometimes you're waiting for statements to come in the mail and then you have to provide all the paperwork. It's not, and it's an emotional time when you lose, someone you love. And then so you're also trying to put your business hat on as well as grieve. It's a very, very hard time. So we're always talking about with our clients, making sure that they're prepared and able to step up in those kinds of situations, for sure.
I'm curious, with the rise of the female breadwinner, does that change what money is spent in this economy? Does that change what it looks like purchasing power wise?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. So in a lot of cases too, I would say, and women are making those financial decisions, rightly or wrongly, falling into those roles about, and it's the exact opposite in my relationship because I don't know the last time I went to a grocery store, but if I'm being honest. But typically household decisions, right? Buying clothes for the kids or decorating the home, going to the grocery store, all of that has traditionally in the past fallen on women in relationships or whoever it is who likes to do the shopping. Again, so I think that it's important to look at that. That's a really interesting a really interesting question. And I think it does. If we have more autonomy and control over our own accounts and our own money, how are we going to spend that? I do see from on the financial planning investment side, again, generalizing, but women tend to be, I don't want to say that we don't take risks, we do, but we're much more thoughtful in our approach to investments. And the conversations when I'm talking about long-term planning with a heterosexual couple, in a lot of cases, it's what's your performance? What have your investments done for me lately? Coming from the male side of the table, right? Digging very quickly into the investment side. And then when you are chatting with the wife, it's how long do these assets last? Are we going to be okay in retirement? What does the cash flow income look like at that time? Are we going to be able to maintain? Looking at, and I talk about this with new families I'm working with, prioritization of your goals. So the two of you sit down separately and write out your goals and then prioritize them. And then you come together and they're very different in a lot of cases. Maybe the goals are the same, but the prioritization is very different. So whether that's leaving wealth to the next generation, whether that's philanthropy, spending your last dollar on your last day. Again, everyone has different goals and objectives, and there's nothing wrong with those goals and objectives, but understanding and knowing how to build your portfolio and your plan to get you there. The investments is, in my mind, we're asset managers, but it's kind of secondary. I have to understand your overall goals and objectives. So from that perspective, I feel like I've definitely seen in my career a difference just in the long-term planning conversations that we have with women.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't want to be, I'm in one of my gigs now is more customer service facing, and the stereotypes are true. It is very interesting. I don't think I had interacted with straight people as much for a while. And one of the things that happens, and this might be related to how they come into the investment conversation, is it's a pet store. And so the couple will come in. They don't know anything about dogs. They're about to get a puppy. And the woman will say, they'll start talking, and I'll say, "Oh, do you guys know a lot about dogs?" And the woman will be like, "No, I need your help. Show me everything." And the guy, it's become a joke. Like clockwork, he'll go, "Well, I had a dog growing up." He needs me to know that he also knows, and that he will know the things that I know, and that even though I'm the expert, she's willing to hear everything I've got to say and learn and look at the labels and be like, what does this have in it, etc. Mm-hmm. And I'll be like, well, it's good for dogs to have. And he'll be like, yeah, rotating proteins. And I'll be like, what the fuck is going on? Why did you come here and ask you know what I mean? And so I don't know. I'm just picturing that exact same dynamic in your office constantly.
Yes. It does. Yes. It does happen quite a bit.
Especially if you're a woman trying to give the advice, right? Or even I think sometimes they're like, what does this little gay guy know that I don't know? I think there's a machismo or something where he can't help himself. He needs to let me know that he knows stuff too.
And it has gotten better, but I'll say early in my career, for sure, starting out as a wealth advisor, I absolutely knew when I was meeting a prospective client or heading to a prospective client meeting where I could not go by myself, because I was a young blonde woman in the finance industry, where they're gonna want to see a man across the table, preferably probably with some gray hair, right? And so that was a really difficult and interesting time period. And so I do a lot of speaking now about women in our industry, and it's that number is growing. It's phenomenal. So I do a lot of mentoring there, but that is also shifting and changing. So I think the more female advisors that we have out there, the more we're bringing women into the conversation from a client perspective as well. And I'm like, whether you need an advisor or you're getting started on your own, let me help you, because you need to get started.
Yeah. I mean, having been on both sides of it, it is very interesting to suddenly be taken seriously. To suddenly have a guy come in and want my advice or hear me out, which I was like, and I see him bypass my female coworkers. I'm like, this is wild.
That's an interesting perspective I hadn't thought about. Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And there's also this thing that we call boyfriend or Instacart, where someone will come in and they'll look completely lost. and they've had this dog for 10 years and they just have like a child. They have a picture on their phone of the food and they're like, this, please. And I like lead them to it. I show them. And then I'm like, is this what you guys have been feeding your dog for 10 years? He would never admit he doesn't know things about the dog. Like he comes in acting like, oh, I know everything about dog behavior. Meanwhile, he's like, my wife sent me this picture and this is what he eats.
And I'm only laughing, Gabe, because that is me in my relationship. I would have a picture. I would be like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, you're the boyfriend or Instacart.
I am.
And then we know it's a boyfriend because when he comes up to give his customer profile, it's a woman's name. It's so funny too. Like he'll come up and I'll go and I'll open the profile and I'll be like, for Jennifer, and he'll be like, yeah, but that's my wife. And I'm like, I didn't think you were Jennifer.
Right.
Calm down.
It's okay.
Relax. It is interesting to sort of put on a little smile and try to help people when you're watching this dynamic, which is like different in your case, but also it's, I imagine it's very similar dynamics you're watching.
Oh, for sure. It's progressing, but there is, there's just been always this, I guess, stigma, for lack of a better word, against female-led or female-led households. And I think that's shifting or changing. I do think. And it's not necessarily even the traditional roles around money. I think the conversations also come around, domestic responsibilities in the home and caring for the children and, who's cooking and who's cleaning. And, a lot of women, I think, struggle, especially female breadwinners, struggle with, I'm working outside the home, but feel the need or some level of guilt to pick up additional slack, if you will, in their home because they somehow feel guilty for being the breadwinner. So that's an interesting dynamic as well.
Yeah. So there's something to be said for sitting down and neutrally deciding what you actually like doing. You know what? I enjoy my friends. The guy enjoys cooking. That's what he likes. He's bougie. He's a gourmand. He's used that word about himself. He enjoys food and she could not tell you what cilantro is. So why would they're married? Why would the expectation be that she would do any of the cooking? It's sitting down and being really specific with what do you actually enjoy doing and what do you feel you're expected to do?
Exactly. And if you both hate it, who's doing it?
It's so funny to find out who enjoys laundry and who enjoys dishwashing. And it's like, oh, some people are like, I just put my headphones in and I go in on the dishes. And I'm like, that's disgusting. I'm laundry all the way. And then the other person will be like, laundry. Ugh, I hate laundry. It's folding. It's this, it's that. I'm like, you're wrong. You're just wrong.
Yeah.
That's the superior chore.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's funny. Yes, my husband will wash and I will put away.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, for whatever reason, he hates emptying a dishwasher. And you're like, it's the easiest thing in the world to empty the dishwasher. I don't want to wash the dishes. So, right.
Oh, that's ideal. Yeah, that's the ideal situation. I used to, in my old relationship, it was like I was not trusted to put away the clothes because whatever I was doing was not correct. Which was a definite sign of micromanaging, but it would sort of be like, walk me through why the pants and the socks are in the same drawer, like it'd be sort of that. And I was like, I have my reasons, but I also sometimes am just like, it's in a drawer. We've done it.
It's not on the floor. Just be happy. Right.
Yeah. If you got a particular way you want to do it yourself. No, not like that. Although my friend Allison has a thing which she calls the Allison solve, where she'll ask her husband to fix something. And if he takes longer than like a month to fix it, she fixes it in a way that he's not going to like.
Absolutely.
He's going to find duct tape in the shower and he's not going to like it.
That's really funny.
Yeah, I thought it was funny too. You've seen you're talking about an uptick in your career in seeing female advisors and stuff. What kind of like financial stuff have you seen, products and such, that have you seen that are sort of more geared towards women, and which ones seem, or what type seem helpful to you or seem kind of like when there's that pink Bic pen for women?
Yeah, I think interesting when we talk about products or services. From an investment standpoint, it's just kind of knowing your client, first of all, what's important to them. So there's a lot of conversations around ESG strategies. A couple I just...
Oh, yeah. My audience probably knows what that is, but can you talk about that?
Environmental, social, and governance, right? What's important to you? I was just going to go into one particular couple I work with where when she was coming on board as a new client, she said, first of all, I want to work with a woman advisor, but I want to make sure that we're looking at companies and talking to companies that there's more women on the board. You see women CEOs. I mean, our organization, Mesro, we have our first female president and CEO, Natalie, and she's fantastic. And so those kinds of things were important that there were women on the team to them. So looking at things from that lens, I think, is important, at least to that particular couple. So you have to know your clients, first of all. And it's really about the conversations around planning that's important to them. There are some interesting, some have advisors, some are do-it-yourself models. I'm a big fan of like Sally Krawcheck, and Elvest is out there talking to women, putting out great content. I think you had the Frugal Feminista on not that long ago. What she's doing, right? Fantastic. So I think all of those things are finding different ways to talk to women out there, whether they're the breadwinners or not in their relationships. I think it's just important to get that financial education and start empowering ourselves to really pay attention to our futures in that way. Money can be stressful and money can be difficult, but you can learn it. It's not getting started is not that hard. You just need to sit down and find someone who can help you through it. If you can't do it on your own, there's so many resources out there, I think, that are doing wonderful things.
There's been such a growth in female advisors, and even to the point where I got to write that article for Autostraddle about trans and gender nonconforming financial advisors. The fact that there were 12 that I could speak to. I know that sounds small, but I remember when I first started this podcast in 2016, there were 1, 2, and now you can go and try to find a specifically queer, definitely, but a specifically even a trans financial advisor. Like, that's wild. And that they have different ways of looking at things. In the article, it was fun because there were younger trans financial advisors who were very sort of anti-capitalist and community-minded and wanting to dismantle the structures. And then there were a couple of older trans women financial advisors working in the more traditional sector who were like, I don't really care about that. I'm just trying to get people to make money.
Right? To make money, save money, prepare. I think it's really interesting. And part of that, too, is, right, the planning conversations that you're having. So interested to hear more about that for you, Gabe, but talking about what does that mean from a cash flow perspective? What healthcare options do you have? What does insurance cover or not cover in terms of gender conforming surgeries? And I think you said you take testosterone, right? Like all those things, it's not covered. So how do you afford that, and how do you plan for that? I think is really, really important. It's a different aspect of planning that I think that people don't think of as financial planning, but it's a big aspect of the overall cash flow planning, I think.
Yeah, and who knows if we'll be able to get any of that. The changing political landscape is also hard to plan for.
In a lot of ways, for sure. I just in general, from day to day, we've got a lot of market volatility that we're talking with clients about, and so just making sure that's part of the conversations we have around, again, depending where you are in your life and looking at those cash flow numbers. We have a lot of clients. I kind of feel like I can know when the market's at their all-time lows because we have certain clients who call and go all cash at those times. They're like But
don't do that. The people that start pulling stuff, I'm like, that's not what, you're just losing money. Why would you start doing that?
But we do have those who are nearing or in retirement who are like, look, I may not have the same recovery period, but, looking at longevity of life and things. So I think that's where we see people get even more nervous. So we talk about, well, here's what we would say technically, but what's keeping you up at night? How can we account for the emotions that you're having? And is that 1 year, 2 year, 3 year? Maybe it's more in sort of cash, short-term cash equivalents, bonds, what strategy can we build to not fully pull you out of equities, but at least change your overall allocation to bring you to a certain comfort level. So those are some of the conversations that we're having, which is really interesting.
Are people, this is just my own question to end this segment, but it's unrelated to maybe anything we've talked about. Are people like freaking out about government bonds or things like that in terms of stuff that used to be really stable for investing?
Not so much. I think it's more headline conversations than it is actual client fear, at least in our perspective right now.
Okay.
Which we have in a lot of the headlines cause a lot of fear. So that's a big part of what we're saying is, the headline risk is definitely out there. But fundamentally, what we're seeing in the overall economy and what we're seeing with the markets, if you look back all the way back to 1930, we have this wonderful chart we show to clients that looks at all the different dips over time. From the Great Depression, and you had Black Monday, and we've had a pandemic, and we had 08 and 09, and we had the tech bubble of the early 2000s. Like all of these things, which felt incredibly painful in the moment. I don't want to take away from that. It's very difficult when you see your hard-earned money going negative. But to your point, if you're able to take a moment, write it out, if you have additional cash on the sidelines, that's exactly when you want to put that money to work, actually. But it always is kind of that up and to the right. The markets do recover. The U.S. economy, has always withstood some tremendous downturns.
We'll see.
Positivity, Gabe, positivity.
Well, hopefully my investments will hold for my retirement while I'm in the trans jail or wherever I'm going. Do you want to tell my audience where you are? Would you want to tell my audience where they can find you and if you would like them to follow you and find you?
Yeah, no, thanks so much. You can find me at our website, www.mesirow.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, but would love to have a conversation. And thanks, Gabe, for having me.
Bad with Money with Gabriel S. Dunn is a production of Noted Bisexual, produced by Melisa D. Monts and Diamond MPrint Productions. Edited by Diane Kang, post-production sound by Coco Llorens, production assistance by Melanie D. Watson, and music by Mike Kaplan, Zach Sherwin, and Jack Dolgen, sung by Sam Barbera. Thank you, love you, bye!
Wow. What's up? I just bought and financed a car through Carvana in minutes.
You? The person who agonized 4 weeks over whether to paint your walls eggshell or off-white bought and financed a car in minutes?
They made it easy. Transparent terms, customizable down and monthly. Didn't even have to do any paperwork.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Hey, have you checked out that spreadsheet I sent you for our dinner options?
Finance your car with Carvana and experience total control. Financing subject to credit approval.